Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Small Town Housing Show. We've got a bit of a different episode this week. This is our first episode with a guest. So I'm going to give you guys a brief run through of what me and Tamer talk about in the interview. And then I'm going to go through our 7-day bullet points just to keep everybody on the pulse, and then we're going to jump straight into the rest of the interview. So for everybody who isn't aware, we're operating in town under the Kamar-Cleary Team. So it's myself, Mitch Cleary with Century 21, and Tamer Kamar. Tamer is an 18 plus year veteran in real estate in the city of Peterborough. He knows a ton about the city. He's watched the cycles move and watch our city progress over the last nearly 2 decades. So he's a wealth of knowledge, and you guys are going to enjoy getting to meet him and hear his story. We talk about Tamer's life, how he got involved in real estate, his view of the last decade and how things have changed in our city, really starting in 2015, and then his thoughts on what's next for our city and our housing situation here in Peterborough and our surrounding area. So before we jump into the interview, just quickly, this week, looking at the 7-day review of the statistics out there, this week is basically a carbon copy of last week. There was a net of 19 new listings that came on, so the amount of new listings and how far they exceeded the amount of firm sales in last week, which is similar. If you remember last week's show, there was 22. So around the same pace, slightly slower. Keeping a real close eye on that pace, how quick are new listings coming on? Have we already seen the peak of that flush of inventory? I'll tell you right now, already we've seen a few sustained weeks of inventory coming on at a quicker rate than it has all year, and it is starting to dilute these bidding wars. A lot of people are getting less offers or no offers on their offer day, and we're starting to see properties come on not holding offers. So if you're a seller right now, your strategy could be changing really on the fly, and buyers are getting deals and less competition right now than they have in quite some time. So things are changing rather rapidly. In the biggest news out there, the mortgage rates are changing quickly on account of Steve Stretsky had a beautiful piece on this yesterday on his channel, or a couple of days ago, about how the bond market is actually starting to move these mortgage rates. The 5-year bond yield, basically everybody's selling it off. Prices are going down, means the effective interest rate is going up, or the rate of return on that bond is going up. And it's the secondary lending market there is sort of forcing the hand, it seems, on what's happening with our debt markets, and these mortgage rates are creeping up on account of it, even before the Bank of Canada has got to really make that move happen. So it's a big story. Things are moving beyond the Bank of Canada's control and sort of tightening up at the cost to money side of things. Not going to go too deep into that this week, but hopefully cover it a little bit more in depth next week. And we are seeing some sale prices started to slip on account of everything I just mentioned. Consistently starting to see things happening all week where we're seeing just a little bit less than what people could have gotten 3 weeks, a month ago already. And we're watching to see if that trend continues. So let's jump into the interview with Tamer. You guys are going to love getting to meet him, and I hope everybody enjoys the first episode of many with guests. And I'll look forward to chatting with you guys next week. Take care. Enjoy the interview. All right.
Whole lot of brothers want Tamer to do a demo tape. Yo, Mitch, what up?
Tamer's been waiting to say that
I have,
a little bit. Hey,
that's little reference to the movie Notorious.
Yeah.
First mixtape, first podcast. Excited to be here. But
absolutely.
But I'll let you start.
Yeah, no worries. So, This is we finally got him on the show. The man is here. So everybody, I think at this point that's been watching is familiar with. We are operating as the Kamar-Cleary Team. So it's Mitch Cleary, Tamer Kamar, and in my young real estate career, I've been drawing a lot on Tamer's experience in the industry. And we're excited to let everybody else meet Tamer and get to hear his story. So give you guys a quick rundown about what we're going to go through here. We're basically going to spend a little bit of time going through Tamer's story, his history in real estate, how he got involved, and sort of his progression in his career. We're going to go over Peterborough the last decade, according to Tamer. Okay. Sort of what changes he's seen play out here, and how the market has evolved. And then we're just going to talk some of the usual talk you guys are used to on the channel here about the way forward, what's next, you know, what we see in the next 6 months and couple of years ahead. So welcome, Tamer.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Mitch. You know, happy to be here. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier there, it's first podcast, so new at this, but excited to do it and looking forward to getting some good info to all of you. So
totally.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to, you are 21.
No, I was like 21, 22 when it was brought to my attention. Yeah.
Real estate.
Real estate was brought to my attention.
So let's just go there. Take us there.
Yeah. So take you there, like how it started, or what?
However you want to tell the tale.
So you know, I was a little punk, you know, hanging out downtown. But no, I'm teasing. I was, you know, I was fortunate to have like a family business that I was working at, and kind of out of high school, you know, got going kind of early in sales with the family business. We had Kawartha Restaurant Supply at the time, and another business there, and from there I did start working downtown Peterborough, and I was kind of like not sure, you know, as most 21, 22-year-olds, not really sure what direction I wanted to go in and what I was going to do, but I was enjoying life, and I was over at a friend's house. And funny enough, Peter Ward, he was an agent in our office, Century 21. So he had just got his real estate license. So, you know, I was talking to my buddy, and his dad, Pete, came out, and he just kind of had said to me, he's like, you know, oh, well, you'd be good at real estate. You know, you should meet Carl Oak. And man, those words changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, they were.
Now, why would he say that? Because you were always an outgoing guy, right? I was
always an outgoing kind of social. As I mentioned, I was working downtown, doing some security, doing some promotions. You know, I had a good network in Peterborough, knew a lot of people, and just, I mean, I've always been a bit of a sales guy, but not a sales guy because I'm a sales guy because of my passion. Yeah. So I think, you know, he had kind of, you know, been almost like a second father growing up. We were at his house in his backyard all the time, in the pool and whatnot. So I think, you know, he had mentioned to me, whatever reason he mentioned it to me, I'm grateful. Yeah. You know, thank you for the intro. So to go back to it, he, you know, he wanted to introduce me to Carl Oak. So you know, it took probably about 6 months for me to get there, but I went into Carl's office. So by this time I was somewhere around 22, 23.
And Carl Oak, for those who don't know, was at the time the owner,
broker of Century 21 United in Peterborough. Carl finished his career recently after 40 years in the business at Century 21 United, and the transition went to Vanessa Oak, who's our broker now, his daughter. And
woo woo, big up to Vanessa, doing an amazing job.
Yeah, she's honestly couldn't imagine anyone else doing what she's doing right now. She's excellent to work for, has carried on the legacy, and honestly is going to create a legacy of her own. She really is. She's nailed it. A pleasure to work for. Great brokerage, forward thinking, you know, really in touch with the social media, the marketing, and just being there for the people. Maintained, you know, Carl's thing at C21 was that it was like other brokerages or brokerage, like pack of wool. Carl had like a family feel. And I think that feel, Vanessa has carried it on, but also like mixed in the wolves, the hustlers, you know. So she's done an excellent job with that.
Yeah. So Carl gets a hold of you.
So to go back, I get distracted real easy. So
that's why I'm here, eh? This is how this works, eh?
So Carl called me down, and I went down to his office, and I met him there at same office, 387 George Street in Peterborough there, and so he, you know, he's gives you the spiel, right? Oh, you'd be great at this. You should do this. Go get the courses. So again, 22, 23, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And so the thought, you know, was floating around, but probably 6 months went by and I hadn't got my license. I hadn't even bought the courses yet. Yeah. And Carl would call me every month. Yeah. Every month. How you doing? How's it going? You got the courses yet? And honestly, like, it sounds funny. It actually got to the point where I was so embarrassed to tell this guy that I hadn't bought the courses yet that I went and bought the courses.
It's the power of follow-up, I suppose.
It is. And man, so finally after about 6 months of asking me if I've started, I kind of nudged my dad and I was like, Dad, I need to borrow $400. Yeah. You know, I got to take these courses. This guy thinks I'm going to do all right in real estate. What do you think? And obviously at that age and that time in life, my parents were just really happy to see me kind of want to take a bit of initiative in something. So so I went and I bought phase one. You know, we won't get into too much of the details of how that went.
No, totally. So that was the start. That was the start.
That was the start, phase one, and yeah, that's kind of what got me started. It took me a little bit to get through it, but
now what year was that, Tamer?
I'll tell you something. I got my license in 2003. And I would have started the courses it was pretty close to the year and a half, I think, that they allowed. So
coming on, we're close to 19 years, right?
2001, met Carl, 2002, probably started the courses and was licensed by September 2003. So probably somewhere, you know, between December and January of 2001, 2002 is when I started the courses.
So coming on
just over 20 years. Now I've been in the business, this September will be 19 years. So 18 and change. So yeah, you know, one more year.
So very, very different years when you started, very different years for you personally and for, you know, Peterborough real estate, obviously 2003.
The game has changed. Like there's no doubt about it. Like it's not the same business as it was when I first started. I mean, it's the same business in the sense that you're dealing with people, but even people's, want and need for real estate has changed. Like, I mean, before it was a home, it was your home for 20, 30 years. You raise your family. I mean, with all the stuff you see in the media, HGTV and stuff, like real estate is not just your home. It's a hobby. It's an investment. It's a whole world.
Canadian obsession,
it
official
really
pastime.
Become, absolutely. And it's a beautiful one to have, you know, but
So the first decade, like, just to help people understand you a bit better, for anybody, because a lot of my audience doesn't know you. Obviously, if your own friends and family watching, they know you well. But obviously, a part of what makes you real is the real story. You know,
the real deal.
So let's take a few minutes, like, talk first decade in real estate. There was a point where you basically flipped and like went from like not like me, you went to pro. You switched gears, and there was a period when you were a kid in real estate, and you were cutting your teeth and you were learning, and then at some point a light flipped and you just changed your whole approach.
Right? That's exactly right, Mitch. Like, you know, if anything, like, so as I said, it took a little bit to get the license, got the license, came out of the gates hot. Like, first 2 weeks, sold a house, was like, I'm going to rule
Went and bought lobster tails and took like
honestly,
3 months
I
off.
I was going to be like number one, you know? and I did. A few weeks in, boom, first house sold. I actually remember it was on Huntington Circle. And then one of my closest friends at the time. And then boom, 6 months, no sales.
I
was like, oh, you know,
still working at the restaurant. Still working at.
I was working a little bit for the folks, but I was working downtown too. And I maintained that for about a year in real estate. But by 2004, I was out of that. But yeah, so sold one real quick. Sold another one probably in March or something. And then had it. Okay, first year.
Friends and family, starting at mostly friends.
Friends, family, a couple open house. Was fortunate, to be honest, again, being at Century 21, had some agents in the office that, you know, they always were supportive and like want to see you do well. So yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, my third or fourth day was a referral from one of the agents in our office. And I mean, always had people that were like positively trying to influence me and like help me get going. So very fortunate again to land in an office like that and to be able to have that that support and that stay on the mic. Have that support and have that that kind of team and office to work at.
Totally. So then would you say it was late? Because I mean, you've been in you know, a bracket of I don't know what you want to call it, like high performers. You've been doing a high volume for a number of years now. For those that don't know you, like, and it just in terms of speaking about your expertise in real estate, so that when you talk to when you speak about real estate in the city, just so that people understand that you've had a good overhead view of what's happened in the city for a lot of years and been highly involved, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Been involved in all sorts of things. Lots of sales, lots of commercial, lots of residential, even had a subdivision at one point listed. So have had the experience and the knowledge to work with many different you know, aspects of the business and have just grown and learned over the time, you know. You know, getting into it, you were mentioning that, you know, something changed in that first. So the first 10 years, again, I mean, partly it was going from my 20s to my 30s, but the first few years in the business, it was very much about me. I mean, being 23, 24 years old, that's, you know, most are somewhat self-centered, you can say. And something switched for me around 2007, 2008. I stopped seeing the business as a way to necessarily, make the money and go on a trip or buy the car I want. And I started really feeling the people, really appreciating that I was a part of people's stories. That for the majority of humans, the purchase of a home is the greatest and the biggest purchase they'll ever make, and honestly one of the most important purchases. So I really started being a bit of an empath. I really started to take on the people that I was working for. I really started to really engage and care and put their needs first. And that, again, 2007, 8. And I think a part of that has to do with growing up. I turned 30 in that time, and just
like we talked about, me and you, a lot of the fork in the road where you just had to say, which direction, what trajectory am I on here?
Which way am I going with this? Is this going to be is it going to be okay? Am I going to stay in real estate, or am I going to really give it my all and try to make the most of this thing? And anyone will tell you that's had some success in life. If you base your success on money, you're not going to get anywhere. And that was the biggest thing. I stopped thinking about the money. I just started thinking about the people. Yeah. And really, I think I've mentioned to you before, but my goal was, I want that handshake. I want people to appreciate. I want people to see the value. I want to add value to their house, or to their lives. Sorry, with the purchase of their homes, and I sincerely just started to care. So, 2007, 8, I should add, at some point, I did just go to another brokerage to be a buyer agent for about a year or so, and that was a great experience. I was very fortunate to have a good mentor there, and at the same time, I was fortunate to see that there is no magic trick. So that was a big part of the transition too. When you first get into this business, it's pretty not starstruck, but you see all these agents that you've seen producing, you see their names everywhere, and you kind of think
where do I fit in?
Yeah, how do I? And you almost look at them as celebrities. And so and the stars in the industry, and I came to realize partway through that if he can do it, I can do it. That really was one of the things, and gave me the confidence. And I went out on my own again, and at C21, and started to just really model who do I want to be, what do I want to provide for my clients, and then honestly a lot of personal changes at that time, and I chose to only live one way, and that's a pretty righteous, integrable, straight way. But once I really kind of put those priorities and the priorities of the client first, it was no looking back. It just the business took off, and the more people I made happy, the more people came my way, and it just kind of one hand washed the other, and it was a great feeling, because I started to see some success, and I started to because I'll tell you, there was many times I wasn't sure if I was going to do this business, and I'm sure.
I think a lot of people in it, out of it. A lot of people have been in that.
It's a transient business. Some people, you're in for a year, 2, 5, and they're out. And
because very high demand. I guess that's one thing I would say is that you're very much a people person.
Yep.
And obviously, if you truly do take on all of people's emotions during a housing transaction is a very heightened time in people's lives. As though when you come to having a child, the build up to it, the moments before, the moments after, they're very. It's different than your routine, so you're very heightened.
Yep.
And it's a lot of energy output. And it's just a lot of emotions. Same with buying a home. And so if you're truly in the game with your people, you're taking some part of that on every time. Yep. And it can you got to learn how to compartmentalize that, which we talk about all the time, because if you're doing a good job, you have to really be there on that level. But of course, it's not normal for just how some people will move 3 times and say, I'm done, I'm not moving again for 10 years, because moving so exhausting. Imagine you did 3 real estate transactions, said, I'm not doing it. I got to need 10 years off before I do another deal. We couldn't survive. So you have to be ready to go back in the ring every time and take on what people need from you in that emotional capacity. Yeah. But not get so overloaded. So that's where a lot of we talk about it all the time, the yin and the yang in this business, how you need some big, heavy downtime when you do. So you're there
$10.
for people when you come online, right? But
now I will say this. I will say when it comes to like doing those deals, like it feeds me, and you know
that's it. So that's I'm
so
glad
now
you mentioned that.
I'll do 10 deals in a week. Like I'm ready to rip. Like it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it actually, you know, I found a way that where it like really empowers me. It really puts me in such a
It does. I'm trying to think analogies all the time of how to like Tamer thrive. It's like food for him is like like how do you say like it's just like level up, power up, like power. Yeah.
I love
it's
doing
like,
deals. Yeah. I love it. I do. There's not
so it's but I would say one thing to that, like on the most positive level possible, and then this would be the last thing I'll say before we'll hit up and start talking about Peterborough, because that's a good intro. Is that one of the clients that we had that we did a listing for together, like as the team, we were both involved. Is he talked about, like, if you ever see Tamer talk about real estate, if you ever have the good fortune of being involved, like you know, as a client or somehow, this guy gets excited, animated about the deal, the art of the deal, the whole transaction, who the people are, both sides, and the one person that we started on a listing there together. Tamer was out of town for a little bit, so I entered and was talking with the client, and he said to me, he's like, I'll never forget him explaining that, like the your guys' recent sort of, you know, as he was explaining, like when we were explaining what we offered, and you're explaining some of the recent listings we'd done. He said, I lost track of exactly what he was saying, but I just saw that he was talking about these homes as though they were his children. And he's like, I knew this guy is the guy for the job, you know, like that level of care. And that's, so that was like, you know what I mean? Like that level of attention to, so I
take pride in it. I take pride in it. I really do. I do. I love it. I do. I love selling real estate. I love helping people. It definitely feeds me.
Totally. No, and you do good at it, brother. So,
thank you.
So hopefully that's a good intro for people. We could, you know, there's a lot of great. I mean, your story's a good one. And your family, you know, landing in Peterborough is lots of good.
Yeah, like family as far as like my family that I'm raising, or the family I grew up in.
So first of all, for anybody who doesn't, Tamer's got 4 kids now. For anybody who doesn't know, which is incredible. And because I mean, your family was first generation in Peterborough, right? Like they moved here.
Yeah, came to Canada in '81. Yeah, we're in Kingston for a few months, and then Dad was offered a position with GE. Yep. And came to Peterborough, I think late '81, early '82. Yeah. And then grew up in the West End. Grew up. Pulpit Road.
Yeah, Tamer's father is a brilliant man.
He's an engineer. Mom was a professor at Trent University in chemistry. Yeah. Both have PhDs. Yeah. Education was really important for my family.
Totally. And we got to give a shout out to we have to mention the Egyptian roots, because for those I didn't mention it earlier. We didn't mention it earlier, but I think it's an integral part of who you are.
It is.
And also, like you joke about it all the time. It's part of your brain mapping for deals and negotiations. Is in some way it has to be cut out of, like, you joke about it, but I swear there's got to be some, like,
it comes from
being
it's the Egyptian in me. I just can't not wheel and deal. Like, just can't not do it. I mean, honestly, like
at the lineup in Costco, looking for a discome on the ladies, like there's 10 people behind you. Yeah. Like there's no deal. It's like, come on.
Well, maybe not that, but I'll tell you, like from most places I shop, maybe not the grocery store, but for most places, I'm looking for deals. Yeah. Whether I'm buying a bed or a car or whatever it is, it's like I'm not the guy that the sales guy wants to run into. Yeah. I'm not easy that way. That's for sure. So. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. No, totally, it is. It's just part of
all in good nature.
Totally. So
the heritage, it definitely is a big part. It plays a big part in why I'm that wheel and dealing kind of way. Yeah,
totally.
So.
So I mean, let's talk about Peterborough real estate. Yeah. Because we hit on it a little bit earlier before we started filming, is that really you saw a big change in 2005 is when Peterborough went from being kind of, people knew it might someday be something, to all of a sudden it really changed, right?
Yeah. So 2015.
Pardon me. 2015.
Yeah. 2005 was still. I mean, Peterborough was pretty flat for me.
5 was a good year. I remember the home building side. It was a busy.
It was a busy year, and it started to grow. But what I'm saying is, like, we were pretty flat with prices for many years. I mean, you'd see your traditional 3%, 5%. Mm-hmm. I mean, heck, sometimes you see stuff go down, but it was pretty level for many years, and it did start to creep up. you know, coming on 2008, 9, 10, but even back then we were talking, you know, $250,000 bungalows.
Forever
and
growing
sales.
up, that's just what
it really
was.
Yeah.
You
know, anywhere from when I first started, I mean, it was under 100K, but you know, most of the business was like 169s, 189s, 229s.
No, I mean, even
You know,
like early, like in the late, before 2015, some of this product you're talking about that's 300,
Still-
like these little brick bungalows, like this
They were
secondary
250.
suitable,
They
they're
were
250.
250.
And what
They
were rents?
They were 225. They were 229s.
And
Rents were like, if you wanted to rent the whole house, you were $1,200 for the whole house.
which a lot of people did back then. I remember my mom had a couple
Just
rent the whole
thing
house.
out,
People didn't
1,200
suite it,
plus
split it as often.
You know,
Yeah.
if you had a really high rent, it was like 1,500 plus.
Did you see many people splitting them up and down?
Oh God, no. So look at So sorry, let me
Not
retract.
compared to now, but
so illegally, yes,
Yeah.
for sure, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, when you're buying a home, regardless of the price and the caliber, like, you know, there's an opportunity to make money, and so I think that people have always historically seen a value in, like, if I'm not using the whole house,
Totally.
and I can rent out the basement, you know, I'll even go so far to admit that, like, my first home with my wife Nicole was a raised bungalow out towards Lakefield, and honestly, we rented the basement out until we had kids.
Yeah.
And I was doing all right with business. It was
A lot of people, oh, for sure, that's
was,
been going
it was,
on.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know,
And so out of curiosity, what was like a split level rents for everybody who analyzes this stuff? Like
Yep.
back then, what would you add? What was a basement rent? What
So
was a
$700, $800,
$800,
and like,
yeah.
and like, you know, your upstairs was maybe like 1,000. Like if you were splitting
17,
it up,
yeah.
900 and 700.
So instead of 12, you could get 17 out of a bungalow.
Yeah, you're paying the utilities, maybe some maintenance. Yeah.
And interest rates. Do you remember what rates were back then?
So interest rates, like for the majority, were like somewhere in the fives. You
Yeah.
know, like 4.5%, 5%.
Yep.
And then we did see with 08 and and going in 2010, we did see it kind of drop a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But then came the real decline of the interest rate. Going into the later years.
Totally.
Yeah.
So from 15 on, all of a sudden Peterborough really starts changing. We see the GTA creep this way at an increasing rate, right?
Yeah, the first time I really caught wind of like, okay, something's going on here,
Yep.
was probably around 2015. I mean,
Yep.
I started to see a lot more out of town real estate being purchased. So like people coming from all sorts of places from around Ontario and wanting to invest in Peterborough. And I kind of always had a feeling growing up in this business or learning this business that like we are in such a great position to the GTA. We're so insulated from maybe some of the things that people don't want out of a bigger city. We're just a little too far off the beaten path to be that, but close enough to have a bit of the benefit of being that close. And I think once the talks of the 407 hit, going to touch the 115, like we really started to see a difference. And so 2015, I started to see a lot of, you just notice more Durham agents showing your property. You notice more Treb agents showing your property. And honestly, it was great at the time. It was really great at the time because you were seeing your city grow and growth at the time, like, felt great. It felt great. So and you were just doing a little bit better of a job for your people, right? So and then 2015. You start, and by 2017 you couldn't deny it.
Yeah, and that's when it was they put like, the tax on, the foreign buyers tax on to try and cool it because they need the cube measures. Yeah, and
now you know what it is.
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah. So because it was a pretty straight line from there in Peterborough when they put the foreign buyers tax in 2017, the two major, like Vancouver and Toronto, took a real hit. And Peterborough barely saw a blip. Like it didn't go backwards like the other markets did. And it's pretty much been steady ever since. And we've outpaced the national numbers and a lot of the Ontario numbers in the last couple of years. With as crazy as the appreciation's been, Peterborough is on the upper tier, in the top bracket. Like if you the charts that we're lucky to have access to through the brokerage there and stuff that show by city the top appreciation. There's periods when Peterborough is like top 5 in
top
Ontario.
Places in Canada. Like
totally,
it was really moving.
Yep. Some periods where it's really moved. So that takes us to more or less. In the last few years, we all know, everybody who's watching my channel knows where we've been chronicling the explosion of prices and the population boom. And I mean, we talk about it all the time, but everybody's always interested to hear professional opinions on what's the key factors to watch going forward. I mean, just your opinion on what you think's happening in the next 6 months, year, then the long-term future, and why, you know?
So to touch on that, I think what's happening is obviously like, to rewind first to explain the lead up, like definitely like there was not one thing, there was many things impacting. And again, we started to see, like I said, 2015 to 2017. By 17, it was undeniable. A lot of people kind of prospecting, saying, you know, Peterborough is going to do this and that. And then, you know, with low interest rates and this bit of, you know, also the other thing too, I want to say this, like I feel that, you know, programs like HGTV really, like, there was a time I had a conversation with a lawyer, like, and it was like all of a sudden everyone wanted to be a landlord. It was like the second career was no longer, you know, whatever the retirement career was. It was like, I want to be a landlord.
It popularized it.
Yeah. So, you know, TV channels like HGTV and other programs, it really brought a light to, like, you know, how you can get ahead with real estate. And so that mixed with, again, like I said, the low interest rates, the prospecting of Peterborough, but the big one was COVID. Like, I mean, no one imagined in 2020, I remember in 2020, you know, out the gates hot for the year, you know, just taking a nice family trip, came back and was just moving. You know, first half of the year was number 21 in all of Canada, in Century 21. And then COVID hit, and it was like the bottom fell out. It was just everything.
Now for 2 months, for two months, and then it was little do we know, it's like a rocket was being loaded up with fuel while we were, and then it just,
it was like this, like I can't even explain it. So you know, for 2 months I sat pretty stagnant. It was a great time for me, to be honest, because you know, we've talked about this, like it allowed me to take a breather and reflect, and again, just as I did some changes in 2007-8, it allowed me to reflect and decide what I really want going forward. I mean, it's part of the reason we're together in this team thing. And there was some definitely some good reflection.
Yeah, was that time. I'm trying to think of the COVID year.
Yeah, it was 2020. It was
2020
we started our first year in 21.
Yeah.
So we started talking in September of 2020. So as things kind of were picking up and the market was moving, but again, no one anticipated or knew that. I mean, a lot of the speculation was like COVID's going to ruin this market and prices are going to
totally. And I was one of the people who thought that everybody did. Like the unemployment, unprecedented speed and depth of the unemployment statistics.
And it went the total opposite way. It went from like what I thought was going to be like the killing of the market to like the fire that lit it. Like it just the
ultra low rates, lowest in history, and then
a thirst to buy. Like, I mean, it's like we weren't spending our money elsewhere, and people, you know, everything you couldn't buy. You couldn't buy a pool, you couldn't buy a Sea-Doo, you couldn't buy a car.
Like you're still. So my neighbor across the road is investigating pools. And on a lot of packages, he's like a year and a half out. And what used to be, you know, a $60,000 to $80,000 setup is $150,000.
Yeah. So you know, going back to it, like when COVID hit, wasn't sure, but then the way it went, again, there wasn't really. You know, I didn't have the sight that it was going to go like that, but of course, being in the business, you got to roll with the punches and go with the flow, and was able to adapt pretty quickly. And again, we were able to, at the beginning of 21, you know, start the Kamar-Cleary Team, which was.
What are your thoughts on, because this is the part of what so all of a sudden you have an increased boom in demand due to interprovincial migration. Everybody wants to leave their condo, come here.
Lifestyle changes.
Nobody can react quick enough, like on the municipal planning side, permitting. There's not enough reflexivity in the real estate world, land use planning, construction to adapt stopped in time. You're talking a turnaround that happened on a couple months. And then so everybody flushes out here. Ongoing, definitely the question that has been, you know, asked is what are the risks or what are the probabilities that we see any of that reverse? And I got thoughts on it, but that's a good topic.
So I know, and we might think the same. We might have a difference of opinion. Like here's the thing: like a lot of the info you get is studying stats. I'm a human feel kind of guy, and so here's what I think. I mean, I don't see us necessarily going backwards. I do see like maybe, you know, we could have like a bit of a plateau or a level off. The only reason I don't.
Are you talking price or population growth?
No, population growth. Canada's going to grow. Canada's
Peterborough.
Peterborough's going to grow. Peterborough's, there's no stopping that train now. You know, Peterborough was pretty stagnant for 30 years. Like it was stayed at one level, and there's no doubt you can't stop what's happening now.
Yeah, I feel like the population sign for Peterborough was, I mean, they only do the census so often, but I feel like when I was growing up, it was the same number
population on that board for years.
It was.
And now I don't think you can stop it. I think we're in the spotlight. You know, similar to cities like Barrie and whatnot, we have to be quick to adapt. I think, you know, talks of the 407, not the 407, the GO train via rail and so on. So I think at this point, like, there's no stopping the momentum that's happened. You know why too? Because we're in a housing, like, people need a place to live.
Yeah, we're at the end of the line. Like, you can't go much further than Peterborough and still have the major amenities
and have the connection to the GTA. Yeah,
totally. Next stop, you start going Kingston, and you're
too
that's
far.
what and then you even just east, you're into the
Northumberland, Peterborough County is going to be the cutoff. It was always Durham before, Oshawa, Whitby, Ajax. The cutoff has moved. It's moved to, I think, Peterborough and Northumberland. Northumberland has also seen like a tremendous increase.
Totally.
So I think we're in that bubble of you know, again, there's so many points we could touch on. You know, people working from home with COVID. You know, a lot of the big businesses and the closure of their offices and you know, rooting people to work from home, which I don't know, like, from bottom lines, but for some of these big companies can be a big.
And we're still, so on that note, I don't know about your recent, you know, experience and conversations, but ongoing. I mean, we just onboarded a group the other day that was from the GTA, and they're on, a hybrid work schedule, a couple days a week in the city, and they don't know when they'll return to a normal schedule. Still,
they may not. That's what I've been told. You know, I've been told that, you know, companies kind of got used to this, and if they can save the expense on the you know, 500-person tower downtown Toronto, why not, right?
Totally. So it's like meetings, board. I
mean, Zoom's become Zoom, Google Meet, you know, WhatsApp. Like, it's become a part of life. Like,
so that was one of the big variables, I think, when COVID started, was what will the lasting repercussions be? And it seems that what we're left over with, sort of like the marks left behind, is that the hybrid work schedule, at least at the time being, seems like it's here to stay for now. Yeah, you know, like a few days a week.
Yeah,
it
I
seems
think people have gotten used to it. It's kind of the new norm, right? So it's become, people have gotten used to it. So I think we'll see that. But going back to, like, where do I see? I see things plateau, maybe a little level off. I don't see a decline. Like, the only reason I don't see a decline, I think Peterborough is still, like, I know it's crazy with our prices, but still cheap real estate compared to neighboring communities.
I know.
And as long as we're in that, as long as we're cheaper, I think that people are still going to flock here, especially if they have the connection and the access to the GTA in Durham. And so I think the connection, we're going to get more connected, and therefore I don't see a decline here. I mean, you know, you might see in the real peak price points in the GTA in Durham, maybe you'll see a little bit of a step back and a little bit of a decline. But I think while the demand is so high and the supply is so low, I don't understand how we can take a step back.
I don't see where the demand goes right now. It's hard to figure any way where does it dissipate to.
You can't quench that thirst that quick.
And even if, when you talk about if interest rates went up, if they actually rose rates the amount that they would like to.
I got another opinion on that, by the way.
Like, just if they actually did ever get the amount of rate hikes in that they're talking about, and say that it affected the market negatively, and we dropped, let's go as long, it doesn't mean anything to say drop 20%, because that only takes you back to November of last year. It takes you back 4 months ago. So it doesn't mean anything. So if you talk even 40%, if for it to drop 40%, arguably rates would have to be raised enough that it's significantly impacted people's ability to purchase. And so to go back 40%, that's still only basically like a year ago. Yeah, it is.
It's not
and
that
people
far
were
ago.
struggling at that point already. And then if the prices go back that far, but the rates are higher, the relative affordability is so terrible that that I agree that people still need to get out of the GTA to come live here. So I think that I know what you mean. And we're always picturing, like, what happens in Toronto, it rises, sooner or later we start rising because it ripples through the whole Durham region. And when it falls, if it only falls for a couple months, it doesn't have time to really make it here the same way. You know what I mean? Like if you see a backwards, like where Peterborough is still affordable, Toronto will never go backwards enough that our prices don't make sense. I shouldn't say that. Never say never to anything. But
you're right.
Do you follow my logic?
Yeah,
where the downturns always happen real sharp.
Their downturn, they're still way higher than us.
For sure. And they happen really sharply, and then they start to reverse direction. And I just think that when you look at this ripple effect of when you throw a rock in the middle of the pond, and the epicenter of that impact is the GTA, and everything ripples outwards, and we're on the very far end of where that energy wave lands here. And I think that a downturn would be so protracted, it would happen, boom, and then people have such a faith in the GTA. I mean, Toronto is,
you know the other thing too, the minute it starts to go down there is a whack of people that are going to buy, and it's going to spark, it's like, you know, there's a bit of a ripple, but like, I think the minute it goes down, there's opportunity for some, and it peaks right back up.
I think the underlying, like the faith in Canada and Toronto as an international city and a hub of a place of peace. You know, that in a matter of like in world affairs, everybody come one come all, like everybody is welcome in Toronto.
Melting pot.
It is. And so I think that when people look at where they can go, it's hard to find a more welcoming place. And so I think it's there's a value. It's almost impossible to put a valuation on the fact that we're as welcome as we are, and B, that people really can come here. It's like that our rules allow it, and that culturally it's so welcoming, and it's so peaceful, and that we're in such, as a country, that we're such a peaceful position.
We're
like,
Canadians, eh?
That's what I mean. That's it, eh? Sorry, eh?
Sorry.
Where I just think
play
that
some hockey.
Like
have a Timmy's.
You know.
So
I think that Toronto, no matter what happens with the market dips, so many people who've been waiting for an opportunity maybe, and they were just marginalized, but they wanted the city. I think that it doesn't have to go down far.
And they're jumping all over it. It's just peaking it right back up. It's It's almost like the teeter-totter, right? So, I mean, it's starting to go, and then just a bunch of people climb back on. It goes back up. So now let's touch on one point there. You talked about interest rates. I've talked to a lot of, I mean, that's the biggest question, right? What's going to happen? Is it going to go up? Is it going to stay? Do I take variable? Do I take fixed? And from the conversations I've had and the people I've talked to, I do think they're going to start, I mean, with the way the economy is, they're going to start raising that interest rate. But I wholeheartedly believe that there's too big of a hole there for it to stay that way. I feel like the minute it goes up, you'll see it come back down. I just feel like if it's not done carefully and in a balanced way, it'll upset the economy and people and families. I think they're tiptoeing around like they don't
so
much.
Like I use
have
it
to do it, but they can't do it. It's like, because if you do it, it's like the wave that might come from that will, in my opinion, be worse than
they know. Our entire economy is propped up on the valuations that have refinanced, HELOC. The money has been reused so many times. You create such a vacuum, a black hole of physics. Like if you start reversing these valuations, and I think they're well aware of that. They can't come out and say it. It's like the United States, the too big to fail. You know, Fannie and Freddie Mac, the mortgage insurers, they're the equivalent of their CMHCs in a way. It was like, people didn't realize until it happened that they were too big to fail. The government could not let them collapse because it meant that they, as a country, and North America, as you know, us as Canada included, as a nation, would have been doomed on the world scale. Our force, as our ability to protect ourselves, our ability to grow our economy, how quickly they would have went backwards in the world. Scale competition.
Let's be clear though, just for everybody watching, like those are two different things. Oh wait, in the States was like straight up mortgage fraud and like different types of.
In Canadian, the more deep you go on it, there is people have stretched themselves. People are very leveraged.
But you know, one thing I will say about Canada, I mean, I met a guy. We were down south for almost a month there in January with the family. I met a realtor out in New Jersey, and he was telling me all the different ways they can buy real estate, and just the different financing options. And it's just, I mean, Canada hasn't been that open, and I think it's a good thing. It's been a lot more controlled, a lot more balanced. There's a lot more rules and things in place, I think, to prevent it getting that way. Like he literally did tell me, like, you just write a letter, I make that, like, it used to be,
Yeah,
it used to be a joke. You know,
And
anyone
I
could get a
think too,
mortgage,
even like the foreclosure process is so different that if it even started to border on like the way that the banks could foreclose on homes there and sell them, the thing is that the bank here can't take the profits, so the process is so much more complicated for the banks. They want nothing to do with it, and our market's so propped up that people can get out ahead of time before. Like I
to a certain extent. Now again, a part of this, goes back to the conversation that, like, everyone wants to be a landlord. Investors, like let's talk investors for a second.
Sure.
I mean, right. Like, there's a big part of our business at Kamar-Cleary that has to do with investors. And,
Totally.
And so even if those things start to decline, there's always going to be someone jumping on it. I mean, the sad thing is, if it does start to go that way, like, I feel like, the typical rich are going to get richer, the poor get poorer, and that's not healthy for the economy or the country anyway. So it's
So,
kind of like,
I
there's got to
agree.
be a balance. It's
Yeah.
got to be done slowly, steady, with some really strategic
the raising of
plans
rates, you mean?
Yeah, raising of rates, and just not because we're open market. You don't want to control the market, but you want to, there has to be some balance. I think the biggest thing we can do is we can really ramp up the construction.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have to make it a little bit easier for us to build. I also think that some lifestyle changes, like, we're going to move, I think, from like the typical single detached family home to maybe like more townhome communities,
Even in areas, mid-sized cities like Peterborough.
You got it. Townhome communities.
Now, what do you think about? Because honestly, I'm talking. The name of the show is the Small Town Housing Show at this point, and because so Peterborough is our hub, but we're dealing in Autonomy, South Monaghan, Norwood,
Selwyn,
Lakefield,
Cavan,
Selwyn, and those populations, it's drastically smaller, different dynamics there. But do you think that they'll start to welcome high density projects in areas even like that, or do you think Peterborough's where it stops?
No, I think that, look at Cavan Millbrook right now. Like, it's growing, and
Like, you
it's
think you
moving.
could see what, like 5-story downtown Millbrook? What do you see?
No,
Paint me a
I
picture.
think Peterborough's going to be the center.
Yep.
I think you'll see. As you did around Toronto when it started, and though these little boroughs or these little villages, cities, towns, whatever around Peterborough, you'll see them start to grow and maybe populate a little more. So you'll see, like, Cavan Millbrook, I think, is where it's going to start. And I think, and here's the other thing too. I think we have a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity to still grow Peterborough out. If the infrastructure was
Grow it out. You're talking
like grow it out,
just
like
boundary wise.
I know you. Being from a building family and having a lot of relationships with builders, like, they tell me there's still a lot of land to be used before we really need to start going out too much, right? A couple of conversations I've had with some developers and builders, like, there's still a lot of homes can be built with what we have here between all the vacant land, land on the edge of town. Like, I know some of these builders, they've, they're ready for the next 40 years, with land acquisitions just on the edge of town. And so I think, like, we still have a lot of space and a lot of opportunity to grow Peterborough itself. You're going to see, again, Cavan Millbrook, because of its proximity to the 115 and the 407. You're going to see them. Got to remember to stay to the mic. Check 1 2. Yeah. So I think you'll see those places start to grow a bit. But I think Peterborough you're going to see a lot of the growth here. To go to Selwyn, to go to Duro-Dummer, to go to Autonomy, South Monaghan, like, you definitely see some more rural lots and this and that, but the majority of the growth is going to come out of Peterborough, right? Where they have the infrastructure and the ability to kind of support those communities, from grocery stores to schools and whatnot. So
obviously the infrastructure is key. That's the water treatment facilities and stuff in the smaller towns. They can only grow so quickly to scale that
natural
stuff
gas
up.
even something as simple as that. Like, a lot of the rural areas, which you'd even think are closer to Peterborough.
I'm in Keene, getting hammered on the propane costs.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So I don't think it's going that way yet. I think there's still a lot to fill in Peterborough and just kind of the edge of town. You might have to see some more annexation from Peterborough, they talk about annexing from Cavan,
totally,
North Monaghan, and maybe some of the
that's where it starts to get real sticky. That's where you get bottlenecked.
And so I think that's where you're going to have to see, like, but I think if the county and the councils are get on the same page. There's no ego, and it's like you
Which-
know, all for the better of the whole. Then I think we could see some positive.
And so it
movement.
seems to me that because that conversation, and I'm trying to learn more about this because that seems that that was a discussion that had to happen around Toronto a long time ago, where the city of Toronto, where they had to expand the boundaries of who the governing bodies were,
Yep.
so, because sometimes
North York.
yeah, you just I think it
this,
gets so
yeah.
complicated trying to have two different municipalities striking a deal when you have different councils that have totally different backgrounds, heritage, different people they represent, all trying to lobby their rights and interests.
Different ideas of like.
It's just hard to get on board, I think, and put
Yeah. I think with the youth and with the forward thinking and the vision of the people who are, you know, eventually one day going to be running and living in these towns, I think change is inevitable. I think it's inevitable. I think it's going to happen. It may take time. It may take decades. It may take generations, but that's the way I see it going. You know, they're not making any more land, right? So what's here is what's here. We got to use it. You know, so again, I think it's a combination of different levels of government, you know, changing some of the rules for as far as like, you know, urban kind of rules and planning and some of the rural areas, and just allowing, I mean, again, I think there's so much room still in the city of Peterborough for it to grow and not necessarily have to go to those neighboring communities. But I think there has to be some flexibility. And even if we could just slowly kind of, as Peterborough fills in, grow out, I think it would be the way that it has to go and the way that it should go. So
totally. Yeah, no, you're right. The youth, like as soon as our generation, the younger generation, start getting involved a bit more, I guess politically, so to speak, and you start seeing councillors move in that are from a different era, I think you start seeing change across the board.
Different perspective.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, that's good. That's a message of optimism.
I do. I'm optimistic. I think like humanity will always find the light.
I agree. When it looks like there's no solution, there's always going to be something.
We're going to adapt.
You can't predict the change that will happen.
You know, that's thousands of years of life. Like but it will move forward.
Totally.
Yeah. So.
No, sounds good. Well, hey, I think we're wrapping on. This is on the longer side of anybody who watches the channel here is going to be used to, but this is hopefully a new format. I think. What are we logging here? We're logging 47 minutes.
Okay, so. I felt like 5 minutes. Yeah. For me, we could go on forever like this.
I think that's good. Tamer, like normally, you know, you wrap a podcast and you say, where can people get in touch with you? But we know, like, everybody, we got, so we've just changed the domain to the website. It's Kamar-Cleary.c21.ca. That'll be bound to change again soon to just Kamar-Cleary.com, but it's Kamar-Cleary.c21.ca. You can find us. We're all on Instagram. It's Tamer Kamar. We got the
Tamer Kamar C21,
and we got the Kamar-Cleary team.
And Mitch Cleary Real Estate.
Totally. And so there's
Kamar-Cleary PTBO.
Yep. Kamar-Cleary. Is it Kamar-Cleary PTO on Instagram
Kamar-Cleary PTBO.
and Facebook?
Yeah.
So we got the team page. We're working on growing that. The girls are doing a great job of posting stuff about the team and each of the individuals in it, and then all of our activity.
We'll give a shout out to Sean Pierce too.
Yeah.
Like we found a groove, and we got a great teammate there.
Totally. So. Which Sean will, I'll have him on the show here before too long and get everybody introduced to Sean. But yeah, Sean's hitting it out of the park as a buyer specialist right now.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's going great. So, Tamer, any parting thoughts?
No, Tamer Kamar, Century 21, Peterborough. Shout out, little plug. Yeah. I want to thank my sponsors. Check.
Yeah.
No, honestly, Mitch, I want to say honestly, thank you for having me.
Of course.
We've talked about it for a while. I'm not usually a camera guy, but I appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate your time and thank you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you, brother. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Okay, all the best, everybody.
All right, take care, guys.
Take care. All right.